Thank you for choosing to watch this video about student collected data. I have a few ideas and templates that I want to share with you and walk you through to try to give you guys some ideas on how this could be used and how it might be effective in the classroom. So, the first template that I want to show you, and all of these are on the shared drive, I'll show you in a minute where those are out, is based off of an article that Darvel and Sean found a couple years ago. And they mentioned in there this thing called proof of progress. And so Darvel and Sean came up with the idea of Damani Pop, or Damani Pops, if you will. Oops, sorry. I thought I was doing a different color there. There we go. This proof of progress. This is where students would collect data about their own progress in a class. And so students would be given this handout. Students would be measuring themselves. Teachers would be filling out ahead of time before copies are made. And by the way, this absolutely could be done electronically on a form as well. Information about the unit, the learning target, perhaps the course. And you could, of course, add or remove the number of learning targets. And then, and you could also change the number of check-ins as well. So this is just a Word document, so it could be edited. And if you need help with that, let me know. But the idea is that students would be informed ahead of time what the learning targets are for the whole unit. And at designated times, I put 3 on here, within the unit, students would check in and see how they're doing. Now, they probably would need some type of either assignment or assessment, such as a formative quiz or even a graded quiz, where they are given information that they could measure themselves against. So maybe they try something and then they have a rubric they graded against, or perhaps they have an answer that they can compare with. Students would then check in. And so, for example, if maybe the first standard, they're doing okay, they feel like they're getting about half of it correct, they might be at level 2. Maybe this one, they're at level 1. There's a key down below. They really don't understand it much. Maybe this one, they're really understanding. They're at level 3. They're meeting the target. And perhaps they haven't yet talked about one of the targets. We haven't learned it yet. The goal would be is to hopefully, as time goes on, to see some growth. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes as you leave one topic and work on another, students could even regress on a topic as they're going through, or they might see some growth in some, but not in others. And then the idea is that students would have some reflection on here. What do they need to do to be successful? Maybe they are already successful here. So maybe this one, they don't need to do anything, but perhaps this one, they need to come in for help. Maybe this one they're not understanding. Maybe this one they just need to memorize some terms. They understand it, they just kind of forgot it along the way. And maybe this one, they need to watch for careless errors. Or maybe there's a certain part of this that they really don't understand and that they need to get help on a certain part of this. And this gives them an opportunity to be reflective ahead of time. And before we get to the unit assessment, they would have an opportunity to know, what do I need to study? What do I need to work on before I get to the final assessment on this unit? I have a sample filled out that I'm using actually in a unit that's coming up in one of my classes. This is in my Algebra 1 credit recovery class that I teach. And what I did is I filled out what we're talking about for the unit, and I filled this out ahead of time for students. We're actually starting this unit next week, so I might have some student samples for you soon that I can load on the shared drive. And again, the idea would not be so much that I'm grading this. That's not really what this is, although hopefully I would have an opportunity to walk around and be kind of nosy and see how kids are doing. I should have some data of my own probably. That would be helpful. Sometimes kids really misjudge how well they're doing on things, and they might need some little feedback from a teacher. So in regards to seeing like where would I actually go in order to find some of this information, if you go to the shared drive, and you go to PLCs. Now, up at the top of the shared drive, there is this little icon here for PLCs, or a little direct link for PLCs. So if you're happen to be maybe in a different folder, and you want to quickly move to PLCs, up at the top, there's a link for PLCs. And then I have a folder that says student collected data templates. And so the one I'm looking at right now is the Damani Pops. It's here as a Word document so that you could edit it easily and customize it for something for your class. There's a couple others on here that I want to share with you a little bit about. So this next one comes from the English department. And the idea is to be very transparent with students about rubrics ahead of time, before mastery assessment, before summative assessment. And so this is just a paragraph rubric that English has used in the past. I'm not sure if they're still using it now, but students could either peer review or self-review and could try to measure on their own how they're doing in some of these things. So maybe they're doing a writing that's maybe a practice writing. It's maybe not their mastery assessment, but they could kind of measure and see how they're doing on this. Now, I think it's awesome that one of the things that the English department has on this is there's a spot for the teacher to initial it. And so the teacher can review it with the student, and perhaps the teacher might say, you know what, I know you think you're right here, but I think you're right here. And then have that conversation, which allows students to have that reflection before they get to their mastery assessment. And hopefully would take a little bit of the burden of collecting all of this data and analyzing all of this off of the teacher. The student's done a lot of the legwork, and then the teacher can have those follow-up conversations. That's also the same kind of idea here. It's about taking that responsibility for the learning and putting it in the hands of the student, and not just the responsibility for it, but empowering them to know very, very clearly, what is it that I am supposed to be learning right now, so that they can make great academic decisions, or at least have the option to. Some of them might choose not to, but at least they have the information. This is another one. This is from the Algebra 1 PLC. And this is a handout that they've got in like duplicates, more than one per page. So let me zoom in a bit. Now, with all of these could be used with different levels of effectiveness. So these are called stoplight problems, and these could be used in a highly effective way, and they could be used in a very ineffective way. An ineffective way to use this would be to just pass them out and have kids do them, and they don't reflect at all about their level of learning. A more effective way could be kids try these problems, and then they're provided with solutions that they compare. So then they compare to solutions that are accurate, and then they measure their own progress. If the students aren't measuring their progress, this is just an opportunity for them to continue to practice potentially wrong things. So this part is what's key about it, is they need a way to measure themselves and to measure their understanding. But if this is done perhaps in progress along the way, or maybe on a review day, so that students have an opportunity to reflect and to say, what do I know so far, and what am I going to need help on? I would recommend that there's some type of way that this is used for reflection, perhaps on the back. Students can reflect on the back, and it's a good idea for the teacher to be somehow involved in that process. I would recommend that this right here is done by the student and not by the teacher, that the student is the one who's measuring their own knowledge. This is what's powerful about this. Not only does it take something off of the teacher's plate, but when students are informed about their understanding, then they have the opportunity to be responsive. Not all students will take the opportunity, but hopefully as more opportunities are presented to them, they can learn the power of that themselves, and that they have a little bit more control over their own learning and about their own preparation for assessments. Here's another one. This is one from calculus. So don't worry too much about the actual assessment, but this one has the assessment, a formative response that's really linked to the assessment. Again, this is student collected data. So the way that we've used this in the past, and it's been really, really effective, students try these problems. And there's some information up here, some directions that kind of tell kids this is formative. We have that conversation about what that means. It's going to be used to help identify what topics they need support on prior to the test, and some directions about calculators. So the students would try these problems. They are not easy problems. They are ones that are written at the mastery level for the topics. And then they would have an opportunity to then reflect. And so what I've done with this in the past is I have collected them and looked at them briefly, kind of just looked at them and kind of given like some quick kind of information gathering for me, so I kind of know, oh my gosh, where's the class at? But I really let them grade. I then provide for them electronic solutions that I post on Teams, and then they decide if their answer was correct or not. And then they talk about what type of mistakes they made. This has been incredibly powerful. Sometimes the students really recognize, oh my gosh, I'm thinking about this really backwards. Okay, or I'm making this one same mistake over and over again. And then what do I need clarification on? So this is great for maybe topics that are really high level, where there's perhaps a lot of steps and where there's really a lot of decisions that students have to make in terms of strategies. And this, of course, takes a little bit more paper, but this has helped kids so much. I've used this, and so has Mr. Gannon, for multiple years now. And what I've seen is that students think they're doing well in the unit. Then they take this formative assessment. And all of a sudden, it's not like we have panic ensues, but they are really much more aware of the fact that they perhaps are not ready for their test. We usually give this to them like 2 rotations before the test, which gives them time to be responsive, to get the help that they need, to work with peers or with us as needed. And what we have found is that as soon as we started doing this is a pretty hard assessment, the averages went way up. Way up. It went from something that was really, really hard for students to actually one of the stronger assessments for the rest of the school year. So hopefully some of these ideas are helpful to you. I strongly encourage you and your PLCs to take some time to explore some of these ideas in the next unit that you're doing.